I've been so excited to get to record with you again, man. It's been too long.
Honestly, that likewise. When she told me, then I say, that will be fun. I remember.
Good. Last time we were recording inside of a sauna in
Yeah.
my place in Santa Monica.
You should see many people when they saw that they came back to me. They were laughing, killing themselves because remember I was dressed up and this sort of thing. And then I say, okay, do you have shorts?
I wonder, so before I record conversations like this or during, like the last one we were inside the sauna, I went for a little run and then I jumped into, there's a river by my house called Lady Bird Lake. I'm in Austin, Texas. And I jumped in
Oh,
there and I swam around a little bit. I listened to some music.
that's great.
And then I came back and there were some other nutritional things. But I'd be interested to hear your perspective of the impact of some of these activities, environmental conditions on the state of our, the bugs that exist within us.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, it really affects it. That's why when I was thinking about it, it's really more than just diet. It's like what you did is exactly what people should do,
Mm,
because you first of all you exercise, second you listen to music, you relax, and all of this affects our microbiome and help it to be in balance and encourage the beneficial organisms or bugs to take over instead of the ones that cause disease. So what you did is the right way, and this is one of the one component of what people should do to try to get over, you know, depression, anxiety, as well as stress.
mm. And that's I'd love. I mean, I feel like we could spend the whole conversation talking about the question of chicken or the egg.
Yeah,
And so our the gut bugs and the fungi and the various different microorganisms that exist within us influence our thoughts and feelings and emotions, and then reciprocally, our activities and thoughts and feelings and relationships and the way that we breathe and everything feeds back into the formation of all of the internal constituents. So it's
absolutely.
where does it all come from? Where does it start?
That's where it starts, is what we call the gut brain axis. Gut brain axis, like, we used to think the brain tells us everything, but now we know the brain talks to our gut, and the gut, particularly the microbes there, through what they secrete, talks to our brain. So that's why it's a bidirectional, really, interaction or communication. So
Hmm.
to me, it's all linked together. And you are absolutely right. It's not like one fit all, one size fits all. No, we have to have a holistic approach, a complete approach to try to fine tune this communication. And when
Hmm.
you do that, everybody is going to be happy. Your
Hmm.
gut as well as yourself, which is the microbes that live in our gut.
So what's the starting point to even beginning to pick up the phone to have communication for someone that this seems like kind of a meta conversation of like, okay, what are these bugs? What are my emotions? Why do I feel the way that I feel? Like, how do you even begin to have the conversation with oneself?
I mean, you should, when you sit down and think about your body can tell you certain things. For example, if we look and after I give you an example. The good example is when you are under stress or you are facing a lot of work and this sort of thing, guess what happened? A lot of people start to have gastrointestinal symptoms. They have diarrhea, they start to have a little bit of pain, and so you need to watch yourself. And if you start having these without actually an infection or a real disease, then it should tell you that there is some imbalance here that you need to take care of. And once you do this, then there are certain, science have shown that certain things can start helping you to feel better, okay, and improve that situation, so that not every time we are stressed out, we have to run to the bathroom, you know. So I think that's how it starts. You really need to, to feel and think with your body. How do I feel? What's wrong? What am I? And then look at the big picture. Am I eating the right stuff? Am I really doing uh, exercise? Am I sleeping well?
Yeah.
And then once you put it together, you no doubt will reach a way where you say, you know what, this is what's going wrong, and let me try to do something to improve it.
And what about specifically with mood? And depression's, it's either the leading or one of the leading causes of disability worldwide. And there's like the pandemic of, the virus, and then there's the other one of the mental emotional effects of being disconnected from people and maybe losing work and a sensation of purpose, or that sensation of like normalcy or safety. Where does our gut biome come into that conversation?
I mean, this is really the question is there a connection between the microbiome and depression? That's the first thing we need to ask ourselves. And the good news is that there are studies that have been shown that people who are depressed, they have some imbalance in their gut microbiome, okay? And this imbalance can induce changes in our brain chemistry and behavior, okay? Remember, these organisms, they send messages to our brain which could affect the way neurotransmitter work. The other thing which we really know is that nearly 60% of patients who are depressed, they can have intestinal functional disturbance. I just gave an example. When you are not stressed out, you start to have some GI symptoms. And in fact, there are certain diseases such as irritable bowel syndrome or Crohn's. You know what? Because of the imbalance of the microbiome, you will start to have these issues. Okay. Now, when we look at depressed patients, the other thing we find is that when you look at their microbiome, you found that they have low diversity, relatively low diversity. So let's break this up. What does it mean, diversity? Look, in our gut, there are thousands of microbes living there. Okay? The more diverse, the more different they are, the better. So when you are depressed, what they were finding is that we have less number, like less people, sort of, and not only they are less, we are seeing more of those that can cause disease. And the good bugs, such as the protobacteria, for example, the probiotic strains such as bifidobacterium and lactobacillus, they have been shown in people who are depressed, their level or abundance is really less than those who are healthy. So clearly, you can tell these studies indicate that the microbiome can be a predictor of depression. You see what I mean? That's how we connect them together.
Is there specific? So how does if a person? Because I think that there's like clinically diagnosed conditions, and then there's the kind of the gray in between, where probably majority people exist more in that like liminal gray space.
Yes, yes.
So is there some type of dietary protocol you'd recommend? Some type of meditation-based breath work protocol? Environmental? Should we get in rivers more often? Is there like what's the nuts and bolts to this?
Like to me, I think you need to take, as I mentioned, a holistic approach. It is not one thing. I suggest that people, for example, let's focus on the diet, okay? Because you mentioned a number of things, okay? It is clear that there is a relationship between diet and depression. That's why I think we should look at it. And how do we know this? We know this because it has been shown that depressed patients, they are those who really have a lot of intake, high intake of sugar or refined carb. Okay. In the flip side, people who are eating healthy, okay, they have a decreased risk of depression. Let me give you one example. One example that people who, for example, eating Mediterranean diet. Okay, this is the simplest. I mention it because people can recognize it and they know what it is. It has been shown that people who are consuming this diet, they really have improvement in depression. Their level goes down. In the opposite side, if you keep continuing eating the westernized diet, definitely the likelihood of having depression really increase. And because of this, I propose that okay, what you should eat. And I have a number of suggestions. For example, I would say we should eat mostly whole food. Okay, eat proteins with every meal. I know these are all general statements, but we can dive into the details. Okay, like every day, I propose that people should have some oil, the good oil, like extra virgin olive oil or coconut oil. Also, it will be great idea to eat resistant starch. What are resistant starch? The good example, bananas, for example. Okay, especially which is in the unripened side, sort of. Oat, corn, legumes, the beans are really, really good. You can have also winter squashes for, and now, as you know, we are going into this time of the year where these will be available. If you take them and roast them, that will be fantastic. I suggest eating a lot of fruits and vegetables. Taking apple cider is also great. So, okay, I gave you a big list of what people could eat. What things they should really avoid, you know? And and in this regard, I think to reduce depression, we should not have added sugar or sweeteners. We did a study where we showed that people who take sweeteners, instead of sugar, guess what? They increase the level of a phylum, bacterial phylum called protobacteria. This protobacteria is an indicator or red flag for inflammation. So this shows you should really don't eat sweet. Like for example, when I was a young boy, I used to have tea, and in the Middle East or Mediterranean region, we put a lot of sugar in the tea.
Yeah.
Now I drink tea, but I don't put sugar to it. You just get used to it, and in fact, you'll start enjoying the taste of the tea rather than the sugar. You
Yeah.
should not eat refined grains or cured meat, no processed cured meat. So there is a lot of these things that you should follow, and then that is going to help you. So as you can see, we talked about diet now, but there are other factors which you mentioned, which I'm happy to talk about.
Yeah, I remember when I went to Morocco like 5 years ago or something. I got off, went from Spain to Morocco. So we went over that little canal gap thing, took a boat
Yeah.
over there. And the guys have like these plates of mint tea. And I was so excited. I was like, oh, we're out of America. We're getting like some fresh
Really?
mint tea. And literally like at least a fifth of the cup is just pure sugar. And maybe even
That's
it felt
true.
like even more than like that. And it's
Yeah.
interesting to do you grew up in Lebanon?
Yes, I grew up in Lebanon. And and my brother Jamil, who's I come from big family, like five boys, two girls. My brother, I'm the eldest of the boy. He is after me. My dad used to shout at him a lot of the time because he used to feel so much sugar. As you said, like it is halfway through, it's sugar.
Is
So
that
yeah,
just is that a cultural thing? I mean, I guess Americans are doing the same thing. It's just more masked.
yeah. I think it's what you get used to. Like you are in a house, and they put in the morning. We have usually like olives. You have za'atar, and then
Yeah.
tea. And with that, they get used to put too much sugar. Like
Yeah.
when I went back after many years traveling, I went back home, and then my mom wanted to give me. I said, "Oh no, no, no sugar," and she said, "Oh, this guy changed."
Yeah.
So it's
Did
a
you
cultural.
did you grow up Muslim or what was your religious upbringing?
Yeah, I grew up as a Muslim. I come from West Beirut, which is mainly Sunni Muslim, sort of,
Mhm.
and but my family were never really religious per se. Like they are not. They believed in God. They believed in stuff. They fasted, but they were not conservative. My
Yeah.
dad, my dad just loved people, and my mom, but particular my dad, he used to mix with everybody, you know, and it didn't matter to him where you are. So I was brought up this way. I always tell people I am like my dad. Some people said, "Oh, you come to the West, you are westernized." I say, "No, this is how my dad was. He just loved
Yeah.
people."
I wonder. The reason I ask is I wonder if you've in your life's research, getting into the biome and things of the sort, if you've ever noticed or experienced or felt any connections from like spiritual, religious connections to the consciousness of these bugs that exist within us, or you've ever drawn any metaphors there. And like, as you're talking, you're saying like, we were okay with mixing with each other. To me, my mind says like, oh, I wonder if there's some type of gut flora conversation there, that because the colonization of the internal habituants or inhabitants rather, if they're open to combining with each other, I wonder if that affects the personality and the perspective of the person in the world.
Oh, no doubt about it. I always think about this. The gut, it's like kids playing in a sandbox. You live in neighborhood. When I was in LA, at UCLA, we used to live in a place with a lot of apartments. Okay, and in these apartments, people come from different backgrounds. So if they all get along together, everybody is happy. It's similar to what in our gut. But if you have one or two bullies, everybody is going to be upset. And that's why, to me, if we talk about the microbiome, I always say in our gut, there are bacteria and there is fungi as well. And guess what? They interact together, they play together towards our benefit or detriment. Okay, so that's why, like, really, that's why I say diversity. It's so funny, like the way you and I talk. Sometimes we go to this tangent, but it is true. Diversity in society. The more we are diverse, the healthier I look at it. So it's the same in our gut. The more diverse, the more different background people come from, the more different microbes they come from, we are in a better situation. That's why when I say, depression have been associated with a low diversity. Okay? So yes, it definitely reflects the society. Our gut reflects the society, and the microbes, the way they live, is similar to us.
And what is the difference between the fungus that exists within us and the bacteria that exists within us?
At a high level, the fungus are closer to our human cells than the bacteria. Bacteria, they are known as the prokaryotes, which means they don't have a nucleus, whereas the fungi has a nucleus. So they are closer to us as at the cellular level, at the cell sort of line. Okay. The other differences between them, in general, fungus, when it is living in our gut, they really don't cause a lot of trouble as much as bacteria. Okay. So that's why I call them, they are opportunistic organisms. So they are happy living in the gut and this sort of thing. They don't cause any trouble, whereas bacteria could cause more trouble. As you know, we have more bacterial infection, for example. Now, when this balance, which we've been talking about, get disrupted, guess what? For example, Candida, which is a fungus, can take the opportunity to start to cause trouble. Okay? So in a way, we don't see as much fungal infection as we see bacterial infection because they are not as pathogenic, or in other words, they are not as virulent. For organisms to cause an infection, they should have certain factors. We call them virulence factors or pathogenicity factors. They secrete some enzymes which breaks the cell we have. So that's the difference between them.
I wonder, there's a couple of things that I think are very relevant to the present moment. One is sanitization, or perhaps hyper-sanitization, and developing the story or the belief that the world's out to get you. It's not safe to, you need to count your touches throughout the day. Okay, I touched that, I touched that, I touched that. Okay, wash it. And then, your whatever sterilizing agent you're using, that's on your fingers, and then that goes onto your food, and now you're sterilizing your insides. And we kind of, I think maybe many of us have the story that more sanitization is better. At what point is that not true?
I really like this question because for a lot of the time, remember, like how I want to answer this is people, they used to look at the bacteria and the microbes in general as bad guys. Okay, but in fact, it is not true because there are some good guys. Okay, so that's why to me, if I don't advise people to be 100%, you know, uh, uh, aseptic, like you go and kill everything, clean everything. I think our body, to encourage its immunity, it's very important to get exposed to some of these bad organisms, okay, because then your immunity builds and you are able to fight it. That's why I tell people, listen, it's like you go swimming, you go walking in the park, in the woods, because it's good to get exposed to these organisms. I don't think having 100% sterile environment is really good for us, because we need the good guys. And by killing everything, that is an issue. I give you a simple example, which I hope people will understand. Like, for example, when you take an antibiotic, okay, you have an infection, you take an antibiotic. There are different types of antibiotics. Some of them are broad spectrum antibiotic. What does it mean, broad spectrum? It means they kill everything. They kill the bad guys and the good guys. And guess what happens? Then you'll start to develop infections like C. diff, for example. Okay? Or you'll start to have an overgrowth of candida, which is a fungus. So that's why sterilizing everything and cleaning everything and obsessing about it, I really don't think it's a good idea. You know, you need to be moderate. I am a great believer in moderation. Look, you go to the bathroom, wash your hands. You see, sometimes we go from one extreme to the other. They go to the bathroom, they don't wash your hands. No, wash your hands. Uh, so if you are moderate, you should be fine. And it does not hurt you at all if you go and let the kids play outside in the yard. I can give you a story. My son Afif, when he was a young boy, we were living in the Middle East. I was at Kuwait University. And we have our neighbor who has Afif's friend. He has a kid. And his dad used to give him this white glove so that when he playing in the soil, he say, "Oh, look how dirty it is. You shouldn't play here." And Afif used to go and play and enjoy himself, Guess what? Our neighbor's son was all the time sick because he's so sterilized.
Yeah.
So to me, no, we should be moderate. We should expose to ourselves to good bugs, and of course, especially in COVID situation now, we need to be more careful because of the transmission. So, to me, using a mask is not bad at all. When I used to travel to the Far East, whether it's Japan or China, to give talks there, guess what? Even before COVID, people used to have masks. And I talked to a Japanese the other day here. He works at Case Western, where I am. I say, so why did you do it? He said, because if I have cold or flu, I put the mask so that I don't infect others.
Sure.
So we are helping each other by not really exposing others to bugs that we have and they are causing us issues.
Yeah. You mentioned getting hands into dirt. And I think it's such an interesting thing that you can literally purchase supplements that are like dirt sprays and a bunch of probiotics that we're eating. Where essentially we're just taking what we naturally would have ingested just by being outside, and now we're in our domesticated scenarios, and we're kind of getting these capsule forms of nature that we put in and we put on our skin, and we get certain lotions and this and that. And I just did this week. We released an episode with Dr. Zach Bush, and he talked about the impact of glyphosate on plants and the impact that has on our not only our gut biome but also specifically leaky gut.
Leaky gut, yes.
And it's these connections, similar of the way that perhaps our personalities interact in the world with our gut bugs and such. I think also we're a direct product of the soil that we come from as well.
Yeah.
And if we're pouring poisons onto the soil, which originally stems from a belief system of some sort, eventually, we that it influences us. And I wonder your perspective on glyphosate and the health of the soil and the future of the soil, and does soil even matter in the first place? And
Look, I am a great believer in the environment. I'm a great believer in we really should follow certain practices that we don't poison, as you say. Like, for example, I'll give you people sometimes in agriculture, especially in Europe, in the Netherlands. You know what happened? They use so much antifungals or drugs that kill fungus to on plants, on their crops, the produce and this sort of thing. What they did, they created a fungus that is resistant to antifungals, the drug that kill fungus in people. So
yeah,
now we are suffering because of this, because when this, and they showed it, this fungus, which was originally in the soil, infected somebody, and they could not get rid of it because of this. The other thing, which is a friend of mine talked about recently, in fungus, there is a new fungi, it's called, new fungus called Candida auris. This Candida auris, what's unique about it, it is resistant to all currently available antifungals. Like what we go to the doctor to give us medicine to kill the fungus, there are certain strains that are resistant to all. And he postulated that because of the climate change. We changed so much climate, we interfered so much with our environment that we are helping these organisms to grow. So to me, it's the same. I really think it's good to like not to overuse these pesticides and insecticides.
yeah,
The less we have, the better. Obviously, again, you see, we need to be in the middle. This is my message all through. Don't try to say no, 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 we cannot use everything bad. No, look, there are certain stuff which are good we can use, but don't allow other pesticides or insecticides that change our soil. Again, for the same reason that we talked about our body taking antibiotics that kills everything is not going to help us. The same if we put something in our ground that kills everything is not really great.
yeah. And then Dr. Bush has people highly recommend just listening to the episode, because I would butcher anything he says, for the most part. But he has some supplements that kind of counter the effects of glyphosate in the
Yeah,
soil. Is
yeah.
there like how would you approach that, that problem?
I think to me, look, we want to build friendly gut microbes. Okay. And to do this, there are now science is starting to show us clearly that this is doable. It is all in your hand. So to me, start to what we mentioned, eat the right stuff. And sometimes, but like to come with you with respect to the question, we can take a probiotic supplement as well. You know, Even it's not just food, but if you feel that you really need that, it doesn't hurt at all taking a probiotic to supplement what you need. Okay, and so that's what I really believe is a good idea. And when you look at the probiotic, you know, their studies have shown that they are good organisms, that they are generally regarded as safe, or what you call grass. And the studies have shown that they're associated with, since we are talking about anxiety, with reduction in anxiety and depression. And what they do, so in a way, you are supplementing your body with beneficial organisms that can fight the pathogens, that can produce also some molecules called metabolites, small molecules called metabolites. And the best of them is short chain fatty acids, for example. Short chain fatty acids are small metabolites such as butyrate, for example, that what it does, it really helps us and communicate with our gut brain and increase our immunity. Okay, so yes, like you supplementing the soil with something to reverse the toxicity because of so many chemicals are used. I would do the same for our gut. If you feel the diet by itself, the exercise, the sleep is not doing it, guess what? Try to use some supplementation, which is the probiotics. I mean, the good news about it is that we are starting to see more and more better science in this area, and the science is bearing out that this is beneficial.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how, or maybe it's logical, it makes sense, but culturally we kind of go through these phases of myopically cutting out specific deductions.
Yeah.
So right now, for a little while, we've been in the gut-brain axis phase, and so it's like, okay, wow, it's like, your brain, it's like, or your guts, it's like the cat brain. It's got millions of neurons, and it's like it's like this. They're connected. They're in a vacuum. Okay, so there's this new vacuum, guts, brain.
Yeah.
But I think that another potential deduction that would be interesting to examine would be the skin-brain connection.
Oh, yes. Yes. I wrote an article about that actually. It's called Gut Brain Skin Axis.
Oh, perfect. Great.
Yeah.
So can you discuss that a little bit? Because it's I think that the relationship of our brains to our skin is, I mean, even from an embryological perspective, like from day one, it's this,
Yes.
they come from the same dermal layer.
Yeah. I can tell you something. Since we talked about antibiotics, there was a study which was done by an academician called Thompson, where he gave minocycline. Minocycline is a broad spectrum antibiotic, and this is taken orally. Okay, so what he did, he looked at the gut microbiome, also at the skin microbiome, and guess what? Not only it changed the gut microbiome, also the skin microbiome. For example, the bifidobacterium, which I mentioned, Staph epidermidis, Staphylococcus epidermidis, which is a beneficial organism, was shown in the skin, was shown to be reduced. So you can see there is a good connection. The other evidence that there is a connection between the gut and the skin, gut brain skin axis, is they gave a probiotic called Bifidobacterium brevi for patients with acne. And guess what? It showed that it really improved acne. So even though we are taking it orally, these organisms are producing these metabolites that can go to the skin, and then guess what? It really is helping in reducing acne as well. So definitely there is this connection between the gut-brain axis.
And so what should folks be thinking about or aware of in relation to the skin biome? Should we be paying attention to deodorants? Should we pay attention to perfumes, toothpaste, toothbrush? Toothbrush maybe. Well, maybe toothbrush. But
Yeah.
the stuff, the shampoos, conditioners. Am I starting to become like an orthorexic, crazy tinfoil hat person if I
Yeah.
start thinking about that stuff, or how relevant is that?
No. I think, look, with respect to the skin, definitely now there are efforts to develop probiotic for the skin, and I'm sure you saw a number of creams that people are talking about. These cosmetic companies that have probiotic strains. One of them, which I mentioned, Staphylococcus epidermidis, for example. And there are studies done from University of California at San Diego, where they showed that this works quite well. So in a way, you are trying to replenish or replace the lost ones. Now, that's why, like, to me, I agree. During the COVID, till we learned everything, about it more, it was good idea to do a lot of sanitization and whatever. And this takes us back to what we talked before. You don't have to kill everything. From time to time, it's good to have the beneficial organisms as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it might be a jump, but I think that if the mindset changes to the point that we are afraid of all, everything that's outside of us, and we start perpetually cleansing with these agents that kill bacteria, which is what, who we are, what we are. I think that you could relate that to being some form of an autoimmune disease.
Yeah, 100%. Look, if you think about it, let's go back when the children, a baby is born, okay? A baby that is born vaginally, they have better microbiome than babies who are born with C-section.
Yeah.
Why? Because through the vagina, they get exposed to all these microbes and their microbiome build better. Okay? So it's the same concept here. The the more sanitization you have, anyway, like I'm looking at C-section, like because pulled out, it's not exposed to all these the microflora of the vagina that mother has. It really works against you. So definitely, extreme sanitization, it does not make sense.
What about the $1 million question, Dr. Ghannoum? Cunnilingus, fellatio, going down on another human being.
Yes,
Is that valuable? Is that valuable for our bio?
That's definitely you are changing your biome, but I'm not gonna go there.
Did you say it is? It is? Why would you go there? It's important. That's an important thing in culture. We're one of the only primates that do it. Bonobos do it.
We are the
Humans do it. We need to talk about it, Dr. Ghannoum.
Yeah, okay. Look, definitely there is different microbiome in the vagina that we don't have in our gut.
Right.
In fact, there are some good ones as well.
There's good ones. Good.
Yeah, there are good ones. There is Lactobacillus caprese. It is there. It's good, and people are now again developed some probiotics that are beneficial. So it depends on your partner.
Depends on the partner. How do we get our partners?
If the partner is not feeling well and this sort of thing and sick, especially in that area, well, you shouldn't do it. This is
so. How do we start to cultivate our partner's vaginal biome so that we can reciprocally feed each other?
People are trying to develop probiotics for that. Definitely. We are doing a study now to try to understand what is the good vaginal probiotic strains. We are doing that. I'm sure down the line, like another 2-3 years, we are going to know more about this.
What about butt stuff, Dr. Ghannoum?
I didn't see many studies in that. I think the butt stuff could reflect what is in your gut, isn't it? Because it's fecal sample.
It is. Right. Okay. All right. Very good. That's very good. It's very good information. All right. So the same conversation for the vaginal biome. Is it the same conversation as everything else, like the gut biome and the skin biome, or is there anything specific that would stand out to be supportive to the vaginal biome?
No, I think there are studies. There are studies which to show if you kill, like for example, people who use antibacterial. Okay, when I remember, let me give you a specific example. For a very long time, people who use tetracycline, women who use tetracycline, guess what they did? They killed the bacteria and they developed the candida infection, candidiasis, vaginal candidiasis. So it mimics that. The only thing is it's different types of maybe organisms you see, because it's also depending on the environment, specific site you are looking at, But definitely you can impact them the same way you can impact your gut microbiome and the oral cavity as well.
Has there been any research around the impact of sex with the gut biome, or is that like an untouched area?
Honestly, I didn't read a lot about that, I must say. Okay. I'll be searching that subject, but I did not see many papers in that area.
Is there anything in relation to our gut biome and what we're attracted to in other partners? Because I know there's like the T-shirt study and various different research suggesting pheromones, and we're very olfactory driven to finding a mate.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
Is there anything in relation to attraction that you know of?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely that plays a role. It depends on what microorganism. Remember, what we do a lot of the time, if you don't wash your teeth, brush your teeth and this sort of thing, what's happening? You are having microbes that gonna have these olfactory chemicals that will put you off that. So clearly, this is a player in the game.
Humans are so cool that we have all this education and books and resources and all that stuff, but our instinctual biological mammalian selves, We know when something's off.
Sure. Yeah.
And then we learn to start to kind of bypass those
Adjust.
instinctual signals
Yes.
based off of our like bullet points of what we're, our belief systems and dogmas and stories and all that stuff. But if you allow yourself the spaciousness to really listen, I feel like we're much more intelligent than what we give ourselves credit for.
I really agree. And that's why, remember, when we started this conversation, I said we need to listen to our body. And, from at different levels, because that will help you. And, this is right, this is wrong. And it's a very complex. We are a biological system. It's very complex. But using our brain, using our thoughts, thinking a little bit about it, you will reach the right conclusion. The problem these days, we have so many confusing, social media, everybody comes out with these ideas which there is no evidence to it. So if you go into there, then you may get lost a little bit. That's why, like, to me, look, we are very lucky because we have a brain, Try to think about it. Don't try to be swept just by emotions, we need a little bit, we need to be more mindful of what we do.
Yeah. There's other interesting research in relation to love, and specifically around infatuation. And when someone's in that infatuated stage, they'll be less, their sensitivity to pain is reduced. And so it's literally, it's like the world feels better, and it feels less aggressive and less prickly.
Yeah.
I wonder, I know I'm asking you all of these like left field questions, but I figure you probably have had all the standard questions, 100 times over.
That's true.
So I'm attempting to bend a little bit. But I'm generally curious. Do you think that perhaps our gut bugs influence the way that we love, or the fungus that exists within us affects that?
It does. Because remember, this is, we are going to have, because of that process, we are going to secrete some neurotransmitters, which makes you happy. Like, for example, if your gut is balanced, guess what? There are studies that show that following exercise, like you swim, for example, we start to see an increase in dopamine, which, as you know, it's a feel-good endorphin. Also serotonin, which is, again, 95% of this hormone is produced in the gut. So definitely, if you are feeling well, you are relaxed, you are infatuated, as you say, and you have more production of these two, whether dopamine or serotonin, because you are relaxed, you are less stressed, guess what? You are going to feel much happier.
Yeah. Another addition, and we'll wrap up soon, to the whole psycho-emotional relationship of our guts and our biomes. You're familiar with toxoplasmosis, I presume?
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing where it causes people to become more reckless, and there's like the Brazilians, from my understanding, the high percentage of I don't know about high percent. I'm talking out my ass a little bit, but there's a lot more of it down there, from my understanding, and it makes mice be attracted to the smell of cat urine. And so they go and they become this bold, daring little mice that are like, you can see videos on YouTube if you look up. Maybe we'll put this, Lindsay, if you're listening, put this in the show notes of toxoplasmosis cat videos. I think that's an interesting thing of like, who's driving this ship? We think that we have sovereignty, but I don't think that mouse probably realizes that it's being manipulated by something because it wants to get back into that cat.
Yes. I think the toxoplasma, it's like a fungus, and some of it can, of course, cause infection and this sort of thing. But this very interesting story that the toxoplasmosis, it attracts the mice towards the cats. It's the same, no doubt about it. There must be certain things, because when I'm taking my dog for a walk, he loves to smell each stone that another dog urinated on, peed on. So there must be something there that attract these people, because they know it. Like, every time you walk near that stone, You know, that rock, the dog stops there and
Yeah.
sniff. I start to
Right.
laugh. So it must be similar story to what the toxoplasma is doing.
Yeah. All right. So a couple of questions I had. One, I think an interesting conversation around gut bugs is things like dementia or perhaps autism
Yeah,
and like neurological
yeah.
conditions. Is there a bridge there?
Oh, you just asked a question which I've been studying, my friend. Okay, which is autism, autism, and the gut connection. First of all, because of the gut brain axis, we know that the gut brain talks to the brain and this sort of thing. And that's why there are certain people who, autistic kids, what we did the clinical trial, in fact, and we compared kids with autism with their siblings with no autism. Okay, and when we compared those, we found that there is imbalance, and we identified couple of organisms that really are responsible for this imbalance. And now what we are doing, believe it or not, we screen 25 different probiotic strains, like a large collection, okay? And try to see which one of these organisms, the 25 we looked at, can rebalance the microbiome in the autistic kids. And we have in vitro data to show that we have, out of the 25, we identified three different probiotic strains, okay? And we are gonna publish this soon, okay? Three strains that are able to keep the bad guys down. Okay? So I tell you, our next step is to, and we are actually in talking to expert in neuroscience, yeah, biome doing that, where they want to test in animal models, autistic animal model, to see can they improve their behavior. Okay? And if that works, they are going to go into clinical trial in actually autistic kids and see hopefully that it's going to help them.
Wow.
So this is an exciting area which we are into.
What are your thoughts on all the things with the vaccine and the association to things like autism and things of the sort? Not this vaccine particularly, but vaccines in
Yeah.
general. I know it's like a insanely contentious thing to even say the V word. But do you have any thoughts
Look,
on those correlates?
my opinion is that as far as I remember when I was a little kid, I used to go at school and in the morning they give you your polio vaccine. They give you, for smallpox, for everything. So to me, I am a great believer in vaccine. And I think vaccines, all of these, that's where social media is confusing the issue. As a scientist, I worked with these companies to help them with their antifungals. Okay. And what I found that sometimes when they come to me to test a compound, does it have antifungal activity or not? Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You know, none of the companies I worked with for the last 30 years, except one, when I told them this doesn't work, they are happy. And in fact, I worked in particular, since we are talking about the vaccine, I worked with Pfizer. They gave me an antifungal. They say, can you test it against biofilms? These plaque that forms. And I tested and it didn't work. I said, no, it doesn't work. So guess what? They allow me to publish. Okay. They never said don't publish or anything. So to me, when I looked at again, as a scientist, I looked at the data that the Moderna, the Pfizer, they looked at thousands, like 40,000 people when they did their study, and it shows more than 90% protection. So to me, it is no brainer. We should do it. Now, is there some people who may have side effects? Look, any drug we use may have side effects, but it's the risk benefit analysis. I
Yeah.
think in this, it's very clear to me that having a vaccine is really helpful. And I don't believe in any of these theories that, they are hiding things and whatever, or it causes autism. I really don't agree with that. And because of this, I'm vaccinated, obviously.
What about a younger person? I know this isn't, or maybe is this like an area of expertise for you? Would you say?
It is not really an area of expertise, but as a person, as a scientist, academician, I follow this up because I want to understand. But
Yeah,
it's not my area of expertise.
yeah. I wonder just your just general opinion as an educated person in the realm of science. If you say like me, I've had the vid twice. I just got done having it, and which that's a whole interesting story, like the experience of vid one compared to vid two,
Yeah,
because they were very different experiences.
sure.
Would you recommend I do, being like a young, fit person that's already has, obviously has a pretty strong, robust immune
Immune
response
system.
to it and has antibodies and all that stuff? Do you think that for someone in my situation, would your recommendation be that still? And I know that this is not your field of
Sure.
expertise, so I'm not like
Yes.
asking you
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
like,
Like to me, as I told you, I think it does not hurt at all. The problem, because we don't so know sometimes what happens. Some people, even they are healthy, they could succumb to COVID. You know what I mean? So
okay,
that's why if we have something that can protect us, this is not my mind thinking about it. I know there is enough data that convince me that it is a good way to do it. I will be vaccinated for two reasons. Number one, it's good for me. Number two, because I don't want to contract the disease and give it to somebody else.
yeah,
Okay. So, yeah, this is how I
yeah.
look at it.
All right, cool. Yeah, well, that's that. I didn't have any intention of going into that. I was just generally curious,
No, no,
just
no.
as like a friend. Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, no, but that's exactly, with you, as you know, I love to us talking, and exactly, it's a friendly conversation. And I'm telling you, first of all, as you said, it's not an expert. It's not what I feel, and based on I'm an old man, so
Right,
based on my experience in life and the advantages I see with vaccination in general, I think this is a good idea.
right.
Yeah.
Well, those. Is there anything else that you want to cover before we wrap up? You have a book coming up.
I published the Total Gut Balance book. You remember?
Is this the this is the same as previous?
Yes,
There's not
as previous.
another one coming.
I'm trying to work on another one. It's just like there's so many things going on. I'm focusing more on understanding the microbiome and the imbalance and how to correct it.
Yeah.
I showed you like one example uh, is the autism. So what I'm doing now and taking a lot of my time is we biome. They do the test for gut test, and we have thousands of samples. And in addition to the microbiome results, we have also meta-analysis, metadata about their stress, their
Oh, great.
what. So now they are starting to look at what is the difference in, for example, women, okay, with no stress versus stress, and they are identifying organisms. They already actually identified organisms that the imbalance, what is responsible for this imbalance, and because of this, now we they are trying to uh, develop a an approach, ingredient, for example, probiotic, to try to rebalance this and hopefully reduce the stress, for example. So
What are
I'm spending a lot
what
of time on thinking about these things.
what are the main biomarkers that you guys are seeing that are associated to a stressed person?
We looked at different microbiome members, bacteria and fungus, and we're looking at what is the imbalance, and we identified these species, and so that's the markers. It's very interesting. Sometimes you see, like when you compare the two, you see there is an increase in certain organisms in the no stress people, whereas these organisms are decreased in the people with stress. So we are trying to play this, do some correlation analysis to try to identify, okay, what is really the causative uh, members of the microbiome that could lead to this.
Right. So people can get this test now.
Or to try to identify whether you are stressed or not
Yeah.
stressed.
See where they're at. Yeah.
What they can do is they can take the a gut test, microbiome gut test that biome cells, and it will tell you about your profile. Okay, your
Right.
profile, microbiome profile, and based on this, the nutritionist will guide you to what to do. And of course, they look at other factors, lifestyles, stress and stress, exercise, and sleep. And then based on that, if you have this, like for example, you identified with stress, they are able to recommend certain approaches to try to rebalance that.
Amazing. And biome is spelled Biohm.
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Paul Stamets and his work with fungus? And I mean, he kind of is seems like he's leveraging fungus to save the bees and save. It seems like he has a solution to almost everything that's wrong with the planet via fungus.
I think, look, fungus has a place to play in our environment. Like for example, the simplest thing is without fungus, we will not be able to break down all the leaves now that falling in the fall.
Sure. Yeah.
But at the same time, there are some of them which are not helpful. So fungus is fine as long as you are healthy, you are not immunocompromised. Okay, so even the most benign fungus could cause an infection if your immune system is down. So to me, I respect I am a fungi. That's what I do. I study fungus. So I think fungus is very helpful uh, as long as we keep it under control if it overgrows. But also there are some organisms which are good, such as Saccharomyces cerevisiae. Saccharomyces, which we use for baker's yeast, making beer, brewing beer. These are good organisms. That's why we recommend that you eat some food, fermented food that have these organisms. So
Yeah.
I think it's just like the way you look at the fungus. Like one of the things I look at a long time ago, there was a big issue with respect to, uh, fungus growing in the homes. When you have in home molds in the
Sure.
houses, and people were really so worried about it. So I had a fellow, infectious disease fellow who worked for me. I was at training. I told him, so he's Duncan, really great guy. I said, Duncan, I need you to do a search on this. And we did extensive search and we published this study in a review of clinical microbiology. And we found, look, based on our research, we believe that if you have asthma, then having a lot of fungus in the house affects you. Now, it doesn't mean that you should not clean your house, get rid of it. Okay? But a lot of these neurological effect and whatever, we could not find evidence to support that. And we published that in a peer-reviewed journal, as I mentioned. And really, I think many people read it. Now it's not as much, but it used to be, oh my God, every day there is some issue with the fungus in the house.
Yeah. My last question is, what are your thoughts on the various different supplements on the market now using ashwagandha and lion's mane and cordyceps and so there's just like some of the popular ones, chaga. What do you think of the bioavailability of these like powder formed mushroom supplements?
I think this, as you said, like there is really hot area now with respect to mushroom supplements. I think mushrooms are good. They, at least when even when you eat them, because of their fiber nature, they have some good effect on our also mind. I did not study a lot into this the mushrooms per se because I'm
Okay.
more focused on medically important fungi.
Okay.
So I really cannot tell you scientifically how strong is the data because I did not focus on it at all for a long time.
I so greatly appreciate that response.
Okay, All right.
Yeah, as opposed to bullshitting. Well, thank you so much, man. I always have so much fun getting to chat with you. I really appreciate you very much.
Honestly, likewise, honestly, and thank you for having me as always. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
what's the best place to point people from here if they want to learn more about you
Biome,
or
yeah, biomehealth.com
right?
will be good, and yeah, I think that's really the main thing. Biomehealth.com will be
Right.
great.
BIOHM
Yes.
health.com. All right, cool. Thank you very much,
Take
sir.
care.
I greatly appreciate you. Thank you all for tuning in. Over now.